Now they also display that kind of iridescence and tyndall scattering, which creates the colors that you see in certain parts of it, at least. So in bright sunlight, they look most vivid, and as you can see, it's a bit dull today, and it looks a little duller than it usually does. But it certainly is one of the most colorful and one of the most entertaining, as well as one of the most beautiful birds we see out here on safari.
The lilac-breasted roller is very, very colorful. So is this one. This one is the purple roller. And as you can see, the way this bird's looking at the moment, that kind of describes the weather and the situation this morning on Gala. It's been a little bit of a quiet morning in terms of animal movements. We've seen a lot of birds like this one perching on trees a little bit lower down, trying to hide from the wind. That's interesting. We don't see this bird as often as we see the lilac-breasted roller. We've been seeing quite a few lilac-breasted rollers this morning. And this purple roller we see in this area now. Tim, what is the difference between the two birds? Is the color mainly. The purple roller is slightly larger as well, but not a lot. And then you can see, if you look at the chest, you can see there's some streaking coming down, very prominent white streaking. And then it's got green on the back, where the lilac-breasted roller's got the very prominent lilac-colored breast, which is what its name comes from. Now, this bird doesn't really look like it's got an overall purple color, but if you compare it to the lilac-breasted, and if the sun falls on it from the right angle, then it does have a purplish tinge to it. This bird is literally just hiding away from the wind at the moment. Normally it would be perched up high, somewhere at the top of a dead tree. You can see its neck's tucked in, its feathers puffed up, trying to trap some air and insulate itself. And I think we'll leave this bird here and continue our search.
Welcome back, everybody, to And Beyond Pinda, where, like we said yesterday, we've come into the area where those lions were. Vultures not landing at anything specific, but we found these 3 sub-adult male lions and their mom all covered in blood. They've obviously caught something, or she's caught something in the night. Belly's bursting at the seams. It looks like a little bit further left where the others are lying that there's something stashed away in a bit of a thicket. I can't quite... It looks like a zebra. Not the best of views of that, but Mom obviously managed to catch a zebra. We'll see now as Craig zooms in, you might just catch it. It's just to the left of that youngster. And in fact, you can see it now on the left of your screen. Where the 2 lions are left of that is, there we go, is where that zebra is. So that's what Mom has managed to catch in the night. It was a very windy evening. Maybe there was zebra here seeking a little bit of shelter from that wind, and she managed to capitalize on that. But all, like I said, bursting at the seams. They're now lying out in the open in food comas, almost like after a Sunday lunch, quite fitting. But a relatively cool day as well, so no real need for them to themselves hide away in a thicker area. There was another young male just behind where this one was here, closest to us. These 2 you can see with all that blood, you can imagine how that will attract quite a few flies and things like that. Come and irritate them around their ears that they then have to flick quite often. You might every so often see them flick their tails as well. And if they get really irritated, they'll try and snap at those said flies. But this particular chap, literally from head to toe, or from ears to paws, covered in blood. And they'll have to groom each other a little bit later on, but they've maybe just stopped feeding or had their second round of food. But all four of these lions are literally covered in blood. Almost looks like it's given himself a bit more of a mane for such a young age. But a little bit of a mohawk starting to appear now that you can see, and that white around what would normally be white around his face is just red. Quite eerie looking. The sand around him is also very red, but that's just because it's quite rich in iron. We'll see if they don't head back to that zebra sometime this morning. I'm going to stick around for a while here.
Welcome back to Djuma, everybody. We've been going around in circles trying to find Kalamba, and those two lone Impala have now reunited with the rest of the herd. The rest of the herd emerged from the east. It's possible that they were all chased when Kalamba was hunting, and that's why we found those two on their own. And they weren't very relaxed. They were standing very standoffish, and as soon as this herd re-emerged, they were very happy. And they came back and they joined the herd. There was a little bit of noise made. Let me just move up. I want to show you something about this herd, and then we're going to talk about a little quiz for the morning. It is quiz time, everybody. But I can only do the quiz if I can show you what I want to show you. There we go. Can you see it? You see the bird there, Glenn, just above the herd of Impala. Now, everybody, quiz time. There is a bird there called a fork-tailed drongo. Now, that fork-tailed drongo is following the Impala herd. Okay, now I wonder if you can send through an answer to me and tell me what symbiotic relationship that bird is practicing. There's two of them. It should be easy enough for you to get the answer for. There are only really three. And send through your answers to #WildEarth, #CGTN. What symbiotic relationship is that bird practicing? Now, a symbiotic relationship, everybody, is a relationship or interaction between two different species. Impala can't have a symbiotic relationship with themselves, but they can with a bird or another mammal, any other species, giraffe, kudu, zebra, lion. What type of symbiotic relationship is that bird practicing? Okay, now obviously, fork-tailed drongo. Oh yeah, no, it's one word. It's one word, but if you prefer to describe it, describing it is the same as one word, I suppose, but it really is just one word. There are three types, three main types anyway, and it is a one-word answer. But if you write it in a description that makes that explains it as well, that's, I suppose, also going to work. I'm sure Kirsty knows exactly what I'm talking about. And we will discuss in detail the other two symbiotic relationships that you can get. Major ones, very broadly speaking, of course. Impala hanging out in a large group because of the weather. Lots of heads up, lots of heads down. They're a little bit agitated still by the presence of a leopard, but they seem to have forgotten all about it.
Welcome back, everybody, to And Beyond Pinda. We spoke about food comas. Have a look at this young male lion. Was fast asleep, but every gust of wind or background noise we we heard an elephant trumpet just now in the distance. He's wide awake. And that maybe too is just a sign of his age. Mom, further back, is also quite content where she is. She's lying a little bit closer to that zebra. But just to imagine that strength of her to be able to bring that down, unbelievable. Sam, you're asking how big this pride is. It comprises of these four. There is another lioness with two even smaller cubs. They're a couple of months old, and she was seen this morning briefly, but she disappeared into quite a thick area. So 7. There's 2 male lions that dominate this pride, and then another 2 lionesses. What's that? 11 in total, and potentially a couple more on their way. Judging by the looks of one of the lionesses who was seen the other day, the guys were saying she looked quite heavily pregnant, which is quite exciting. The next couple of months we might have a few more. There's another vehicle on its way, so this chap might get up and move. Looks like he's wanting to disappear. But it's amazing how, and you can imagine with the 4 of them trying to all eat that zebra, everyone's just commenting on the fact that these lions look like they've been dyed pink. It does look like they've been washed in some sort of red dye. But when it comes to feeding time, they're not the friendliest of bunch. Even siblings with their moms or with big male lions can get quite feisty. And maybe it was a case of them not having eaten for a while, but just to get that covered in blood, they must have been fighting for the good bits of that zebra. Although there is quite a bit to go around, we'll probably look after them, should I say, for a good few days before they'll have to hunt again. But they are opportunistic cats. That is a really good area that they're in as well. So, you never know. I wonder if Mom, I haven't really been able to see Mom, but she doesn't look like she's been covered in dye like the rest of her sons. One of the other youngsters moved a little bit closer to this chap, but he's tucked behind this quarry. There you can just see the black tip of his ear. Craig's got a better angle than me. See if anything changes in the next while.
Welcome back to the woodlands of Djuma with our Impala and our fork-tailed drongo somewhere around in the tree. Our fork-tailed drongo is actually just above that Impala grooming, Glenn. Right above that one. You can't see it clearly. A little bit left. There we go. There he is. Now, fork-tailed drongos are insect eaters, and they are related to the flycatchers. Their hunting strategy is to sit on a branch like that. When they see an insect, they fly off, and they come and land back again. Sometimes they'll land on the floor to catch the insect, but they often practice a behavior known as hawking. So they fly off a branch, catch an insect, and fly back again. Fly off a branch, catch an insect, and fly back again. So what they are doing is they are using the Impala to disturb insects in the long grass, and they're now benefiting from the disturbance. So we are ready for some quiz answers. Steve, you reckon parasitism? No, Steve, it's not parasitism. Parasitism would be if one of the animals was negatively affected in some way. If, for example, a tick or an internal parasite like a tapeworm or even a mosquito. That is a parasitism, where an animal is actually negatively affecting the other animal. And a parasite is generally much smaller than the host and doesn't normally kill it. That is the general term for parasite. Sometimes the diseases that it transfers can kill it, but that is another matter entirely. Mellivora has coined the second one, mutualism. Now, Mellivora mutualism means that the fork-tailed drongo benefits, of course, which it does, but it also means that the Impala somehow benefits. But the Impala doesn't benefit from the activity of the fork-tailed drongo. There's no benefit, there's no negative interaction, there's no positive interaction. The fork-tailed drongo doesn't alarm call for the Impala for the most part. Maybe from time to time they do. They've been known to interact with meerkats and with mongoose, where they will do alarm calls, which is a benefit. But then they've also been known to do false alarm calls, which causes the meerkats or the mongoose to run away, and the fork-tailed drongo then benefits. So in this instance, the Impala are not at all affected by the presence of the fork-tailed drongo. So it leaves us only one more option. Carly, James, and Mick, you all say commensalism. Well, indeed, everybody, that is the true and final answer. Commensalism is where one party benefits and the other one is not affected at all. So you find it many times, cattle egrets following buffalo, following cows. You find fork-tailed drongos or bee-eaters following other animals. The animals are essentially flushing the vegetation and disturbing the insects, and that is being benefited by the fork-tailed drongo. So many birds will practice this behavior, and there's no negative effect on the other animal, which means commensalism. There are many, many relationships in nature where animals benefit and the host or the other species is not affected negatively. Many, many ideas. And it is wonderful to look at nature and always think to yourself, who is being affected now? Who is being positively affected, negatively affected? Who is not being affected at all? So very broad categories, but nice to get into the ecology of an area. For example, the species themselves will help to groom themselves. So that is a type of competition where male and female or female and female will groom each other to help remove ticks. But there's not a symbiosis there because both animals are the same species. But the oxpecker feeding off of an impala is cleaning the ticks off the impala, which is obviously a benefit to the impala, and at the same time the oxpecker is getting dinner, breakfast or lunch, whatever it might be. But then that relationship can also be turned around sometimes because oxpeckers feed on blood. So quite often we see it on hippos, we see it on giraffe, that will actually keep a scab open. And that actually inflicts a negative reaction to that animal. So the oxpecker sometimes is also acting as a little bit of a parasite because it's actually affecting the wound or the healing of that animal so that it can access its blood. So these relationships are intricate. They're not always black or white. There's always a gray area. So it's always awesome to have a look at these things and to try and figure out exactly how that organism fits into the ecology.
Talking about relationships, it's not black and white. We have just come upon a very interesting scene here. Actually, quite a scene that you see quite often. It's quite an interesting relationship here. You can see 3 different large mammal species, the impala, the wildebeest, as well as the zebra. And as you can see, there's some more wildebeest. All of these animals seem to be moving together without any problem or any worry from being mixed up with others. And where they're standing at the moment is right on the edge of a clearing. It's a little bit more cover there from the wind. And have a look, that wildebeest has got a head up. Both of them were grooming. The one at the back is still looking in same direction. And because we have so many animals in this area. They know that they can benefit from all the eyes and the protection that provides. You can see the Impala. It looks like Impala rams are standing at the back. They're feeding off, it looks like a little bit lower down. There might be small shrubs in that section of this clearing. And we often find that they move more towards the outskirts of the clearing where the bush starts getting thicker. Where the wildebeest, these wildebeest are strictly eating the shorter grasses. And we can't really see from where we are at the moment. Zebra, also an animal that only eats grass. Not only grass, but mostly grass. And have a look. At the moment, all animals have their head down. There's not even one looking up. Grey skull. What is a wildebeest's best defense? I'm not entirely sure what would be the absolute best defense, but if I had to take a guess, I'd go with the horns, more than likely. It is there for protection. It's a large antelope. Both male and female have horns, and it makes one wonder why that would be. The males, potentially for competing for mating rights, but then the question would be asked why the females would have them. Because they get preyed on by large predatory animals like lion, hyena, they need to be able to protect themselves. So I'd say the horns. That would be its physical defense if it had to stand its ground. But they're also very quick, and they can run extremely fast. So as soon as they pick up on the first sign of danger, then they'll move. And what's interesting in this situation is the wildebeest have an excellent sense of smell, and they're standing right on the crest or the clearing is right up on a crest. Nearby there's a little bit of a valley behind them. And it is warmer here at the moment than further down, but it's also good for animals to have a lookout, like those zebra. If they see anything moving far off, they'll be able to spot that and then alarm, which might trigger the same response within the other animals. You can see the zebras moving off. I'm pretty sure if most of the animals move off, then the others will follow them as well.
Welcome back to Unbound Panda, everybody. We're just talking about zebras moving off. This one here sadly wasn't able to move off in time. And just coming back to what I was saying earlier, the three of these young males wouldn't have gotten involved in this hunt with Mom. Something that they're probably not experienced with, and something like a zebra is probably just too powerful for them at such a young age. But at the same time, you've just got to admire Mom's strength to pursue it. I haven't seen the full scale of that zebra that she took down, but I think any sort of size zebra, I haven't seen very many foals around, so I can only imagine what it was an adult zebra. For her to bring that down and not sustain an injury, be it from a kick or, rough and tumble in the process of tackling it down, is actually quite something. For her to then provide for these three young boys who at around 15 months old are rather large. You can see those paws of theirs that they've still got some growing to do. In the next while, soon Mom will leave them, and the three of them will stick together and become nomadic for a while before they look to take over a territory and a pride of their own. And that being said, when it does come to them being fully grown, an adult male lion can eat up to about 25 kilograms of food in a sitting, which is a ridiculous amount of food. They can weigh up to around 250 kilograms as well, so it's just scary to think of that size of an animal with a full belly, which, again, like we said, like these chaps bursting at the seams is quite something. That's only, at least for these chaps, I'd say 3-4 years' time before we see them in their prime with those big dark black manes, a tuft of fur behind their elbows, and a little bit bigger in size. Not a little bit, probably double the size that they are now. And that's it. Now you can see the extent of that belly. That belly on the ground. Big old sigh as well as he flops over. But just have a look at that belly. I don't think there's any more space for food in there for this young male. Derek's asking how long the males will stay together for the rest of their lives, and it's exactly that long for the rest of their lives, Derek. The three of these boys are lucky because they've got the three of them, so later on down the line when it comes to, establishing a territory and dominating prides, 3 is a strong number to have. I'm sure you've seen those videos and documentaries of the Mapocho males or the Majinga lions who have a couple more male lions in them. It's obviously a lot easier for them to take over prides and dominate territories. But I think, the three of them will stick together for life. There'll always be a dominant brother in amongst them, so they'll obviously have to fight each other for mating rights, etc. But that's still going to happen in a few years' time. As for today and the 4 of them, this cooler weather, looked like it took a lot of energy to roll over like that and get right side up. A couple of buffalo moving through the distance that are, I think, to the left of them that have caught their attention. Not that they are going to do much to them unless they come a little bit closer. Buffalo are not very fond of lions. They might chase them away. I don't think they'll pick a fight having such fat bellies with buffalo. They're a lot stronger than they are as well. Jerry, you asking when a coalition gets named? We here in Pinda will name coalitions so we know which animals we're referring to, but they don't have specific names. As for coalitions like the Mapochos or the Majinga lions, I think just because of their dominance and what they did, the Majinga lions killed, I think, close to 60 or 70 other lions, and just because they made a bit of a name for themselves, I think that's why they got named. And obviously everyone just knew who they referred to if they were found or if people were interested in looking for them. As for these 3, it might just be characteristic traits, not so much names, but scars and things like that on their faces that we are able to distinguish them from each other.
Can you see what I see? Seems to be a bit of a birding morning for me, at least. It's a gorgeous martial eagle. For me, they're quite easy to identify. You can see they've got that kind of bib, dark brown head and bib. It's almost as if it's an inverted fish eagle, in my opinion, at least. Now, these are big guys. These eagles are about 4 kgs. That's so wonderful to see it. It's especially nice to see it because in certain regions, and in our region, they're listed as vulnerable. So it's always a pleasure to see them. And we've been seeing at least in my stint so far, I've seen it 3 times, twice live, including this one, and once not when I wasn't live. So I think that that's really special. But they are residents of this area. It's just not very common to see them. And given their large size, 4 kgs, they can take a very large prey compared to other birds. Look at it, watching down. So they can take small antelope. Something like a martial eagle would be able to take cubs, hyena cubs, leopard cubs. I think that's really, really amazing. And their eyesight would be spectacular. Birds of prey have 2 fovea. So fovea is the portion of your eye where you would see most clarity, where your focus is best, and where your retina is densely packed with rods and cones. We call that a fovea. Eagles and other birds of prey have 2 in each eye. So basically, it's kind of like having a macro lens and a normal lens on your camera, so that you can see but at the same time. So you'd be able to see things that are close by very sharp and things that are far away. And that obviously benefits it very much when it needs to hunt, even when it just needs to fly. They've got other adaptations too. Now in our retina, there needs to be blood vessels to actually carry blood and oxygen to the eye. And that's why sometimes if you stare at the sun or you get light coming in at a whole lot of different angles, you can sometimes see the shadow of those blood vessels. And you kind of have to blink it away. Eventually, it'll become clear. But that happens when you have light coming in at different angles, especially, and if it's scattered quite harshly, then you see those shadows. Birds of prey, as well as other birds, even a chicken, has a pecten, which is a collection of blood vessels that's not around the eye, so it can't create a shadow on their eyes when they need to see. And that's really important because birds often fly around trees, beneath trees, under canopies, and beneath clouds where there's different amounts of light coming in. If there's different amounts of light, it means that their eyes will have a tough time to adjust, and they'd be able to see the shadow of all those blood vessels. So that's why they have a densely packed little pecten in the center of their eye that's not attached to the outer areas, and it can't cast a shadow. Because if it did, they'd see a whole lot of shadows as they flew through the bush and light came in different directions. Oh, and I was going to say off it goes. I'm going to watch it for a little bit longer. Maybe I'll be lucky to see it fly.
Another really massive bird sitting on its nest. White-backed vulture, just staying warm on this incredibly cold and windy morning. It's quite nice though. Often don't get to see this vulture because it's out and about, so we haven't seen it for a while. Very, very cool. Hi everyone and welcome. My name is Mike, and behind the camera we've got Odie. Seb says goodbye. Odie's welcome, Odie. And you're joining us here at Eco Spritelands Conservancy. We're just visiting the southern areas that we don't get to see very often. It was a little bit quiet on the reserve this morning because it's so cold. So we are just wondering what was down here. We've come across this nest. Surprised to see this vulture still on there. We never did figure out really if this was the youngster or the adult, but nonetheless, it is trying to stay warm. Look at it shifting there a little bit. You can see the whole tree is moving. That's not the camera moving, that's the tree itself being blown in this really, really consistent and strong wind. Must be miserable out there. Remember, such a large bird like this needs to be able to use the thermals to fly. And so it's not going to be doing much flying this morning because it'll use too much energy. It'll take a lot of effort for it to gain height and altitude with this really strong cold wind. Animal life? That's a good question. They certainly can. Eagles and hawks can attack vultures. Remember, a vulture's a massive bird, usually much larger than most eagles and definitely larger than most hawks. And so anything that would try and attack it could become quite injured because vultures have sharp beaks and talons and big wings that can slap them out of the air. So they probably wouldn't bother because remember, a vulture's not really doing much to bother an eagle. Maybe at a carcass, if an eagle is there trying to get a bit of the meat, it might fight a little bit, but I wouldn't think many things are going to be bothering a vulture. Even smaller birds like drongos and other things don't really bother vultures because vultures are relatively, docile. They don't really attack much. Although there are records of white-backed vultures eating live prey, hunting live prey like young impalas and such, but generally speaking, they just eat carcasses. They fight with each other a lot, though, vultures. If you've ever seen vultures, a lot of vultures at a carcass, it's an aggressive affair. Lots of wing slapping and noise and jumping, and looks like having a ninja fight. Lots of backflips and kicks and all sorts of stuff. But no, I don't think many eagles are really going to fight with a vulture. Cool question, though. I liked it. Almost as cool as this morning.
So we finally succeeded in finding some lions, and as we got here we found them right where they are, and they're busy looking at a herd of impala. It's actually not far off. You can see there's two of them, one and the other one was hiding in plain sight. Look at those ears, still flat, and she's steadily keeping her eyes on the impalas. Not too much movement. The impalas haven't seen them. They are downwind from them. And they're watching every move very, very, very carefully. Now this looks like a younger lioness. Both of these actually look like they're a little bit younger, and this lion certainly looks quite unimpressed at the moment. But I think it's also because of the cool wind. This morning's actually really cold, and it is possible that they were just laying in this clearing to get out of the wind, and then the impalas walked into the area. You can see now she's paying a little bit more attention, and that's because some of the impalas have stepped out into the open. Now, we're only seeing two here. And I'm sure that there might be more around. I don't think it's just these two lionesses. I almost get the feeling that these two have been sitting waiting for something to get chased towards them. You can see they're intensely staring at the impalas. I'm not gonna make any sudden movements now. If they do, that one looks like she might even fall asleep. If they do, of course, they'll spook them, and then all the efforts will be done. So a quick glance over to the sister. I can see some mammary glands there, and she looks like she's a little bit skinny, so... Ooh, nice yawn. Now, we have heard recently that there's a lioness with 4 new youngsters in this area that we haven't seen yet. They were only spotted once. We weren't aware of them. So I am curious to know if this might be that lioness. You can see the stretchers going on. I think she was laying down on that spot for quite a while. should be very interesting to see where she goes. If we are lucky enough, maybe she might even take us towards those youngsters. So I think we'll sit with these two for a little while longer and see where they head to.
Yeah, stay with the lions and see what happens, because I've stayed by the river. I've had my toppies, I had my zebras, and now I stay with the lions, because you never know what will happen later on. I have stuck my toppies and my zebras, and now I got a long single wildebeest. Not sure what exactly she wants to do. She's all alone, but apparently she is on the side we are of the river. So we'll see what happens, and maybe she might cross. So it's always good to stay with the lions, because you never know what the lions will do. I've stayed with the zebras, I've stayed with the toppies, but now one single lone wildebeest has come here. She's on the side of the bank we are in. I'm not sure exactly what she wants to do. Very dangerous to cross this river alone. Anything could happen. I mean, I haven't seen many wildebeest making it from one side to the other, especially if they're calling on their own. And apparently she looks very skinny. She doesn't look to be in very good shape. We got lots of food in the Mara, lots of grass. But she doesn't look very healthy to me. And this could even complicate her chances of making it to the other end. She looks and she knows there could be anything in that water. And it's a very difficult decision, because unless she wants and go and join the other herd that is on the other side of the river, I feel sorry for her. Looks like a female to me. And more often than not, you'll see the females together with the rest or with the calves. Maybe eat the last grass, last supper, or last breakfast. Who knows? Because across on the other side, we got toppies and zebras, slightly bit bigger number than what we had before. And I'm feeling we have the right weather conditions now for them to cross. It has warmed up nicely. You see them there making a queue, single file, all of them facing the river. One of them maybe will walk from behind and come past the whole queue. And like, guys, I'm building the courage. I want to go number one. Maybe not. It's just too early to make that decision. Who will go first? I usually wonder what goes through in their minds. But one thing is certain is the danger. Lisa, you'd like to know whether zebras are more social than toppies. Lisa, I would say they are more or less the same. Now, these two species, these two herbivores, will socialize the same way. But once in a while, you'll get single toppies on their own, and I'm talking about the males. If the males have maybe to guard the territory, not once or twice, you see toppies on huge salmon mound, just resting and looking around what is happening. You do not see that, Lisa, with the zebras. Zebras, to see one on its own, something is very wrong. Either it's injured or something has happened. But in general, I would say the zebras are slightly bit more social than the toppies. Same case to the wildebeest. To see one single like this, something is not right, Lisa. Like as she looks, not in her best, so that would happen. Toppies, you'll see twos or threes, but more often than not, you'll see one single male just on the top of a salmon mound guarding the territory. As I told you earlier, patience is key, and I am remaining put right here.
Thanks, Gigi. Oh, good luck. I hope you managed to get a crossing today. We've moved on from our Impala, and we found a nice little family of elephants here busy feeding. And with them as well, here's a little family of fork-tailed drongos that are doing exactly what they did before with the Impala. They're hoping the elephants are going to disturb the vegetation and flush out the insects. So a very energy efficient way of catching food. You don't have to physically look for it. Just sit there and wait for it to move. And then you can plunge down. So lovely to have found this herd of elephants, and they are slowly but surely moving towards the watering hole. So maybe we'll get them drinking. It's often quite a magical time of day, having a herd of elephants down by the water. Waiting patiently. It is nice and peaceful, everybody. Very peaceful. You see the youngster there, Glenn? Almost. I'm going to just move a touch to the right and forward so we can see this little fellow. Go. There he is. He's getting right involved there and learning how to eat like an elephant. What are you getting here, big brother? What exactly is your nose looking for? Still quite young, that little elephant there. Probably still reliant on mum's milk, but still needs to learn where the food comes from. Oh, leg in the air. Still needs to learn what is what. And like yesterday, watching that young elephant trying to use its trunk. This one is also trying to learn how to walk backwards. Oh, here we go. He's going to come and say hello to us. He can hear my voice. He's going, who's that? A little white patch on its head, almost as if a bird's pooed on its head. There's Mum, right back in the mix. I often find when elephants are eating like this, the youngsters have lots of time to play, lots of time to move around, because they don't have to feed like this. They get their nutrient-rich milk from Mum, which they feed on I don't know how many times a day, but whenever they're hungry. But elephants, because their digestive system is quite poor, they're pretty much feeding like this all day long. So you'll find the adults and the sub-adults and the adolescents feeding and feeding and feeding, and the really small youngsters having lots of time to play. Because what else is there to do? You can learn, there's only so much every day. And the trunk takes a lot of practice getting used to. But this is pretty much the life of an elephant, moving around, eating, using the trunk to access. You can see there's a big clump of grass there where a tree's been pushed over. The grass has grown quite tall, and so the elephants know that there's long grass and hidden gems with regards to feeding in an area that they've created themselves.
Welcome back, everybody, to And Beyond Pinda, where I think this young male lion is more twitcher than anything else. There have been a couple of pied crows that have come down to investigate the zebra, who I don't think these lions will give up anytime soon. But if we look above to the skies above us, you'll see us still odd 40, 50 white-backed vultures taking to the skies. And maybe just waiting for a gap to come down. But this young male that we've been watching all morning keeps glancing up at them and provides for some very entertaining viewing as he glances up, just appreciating these white-backed vultures who are circling above, waiting for their opportunity to maybe come scavenge from this zebra that they've managed to catch. Really peaceful in this valley as well. There are numerous trees in the background, a couple of scotias or weeping boebeans that are flowering at the moment, which attract birds from far and wide. A lot of sunbirds will come and eat them. In fact, those baboons that alerted us to these lions earlier were also picking at the sweet nectar of those very red flowers. As we pan back now, you might just see a picture. Let's see if there are any birds. We heard black-collared barbets calling from them earlier. You have to, in times like this, when the lions are just being typical lions with their full bellies, turn to the bird books and see if there aren't any unusuals that we can add. But black-collared barbets, crested barbets, all feeding on the nectar from those flowers of that scotia this morning. Arabian Heart, you're asking whatever happened to those two Tswalu males from this pride of lions. They just reached the age where they could no longer stay in the pride. The dominant males obviously kicked them out, and they're just nomadic. They've probably gone to a quiet stretch of this reserve, out of sight and out of mind, and that's where they'll be. It's still relatively quiet in terms of guides driving around in the areas that we don't often look at, so I'm sure they're just biding their time there for the time being, which I'm sure these three will soon be doing in the next couple of months. The dominant males will kick them out of their pride, and that will be the rest of them for the next couple of years as they go nomadic before they'll look to challenge perhaps the dominant males of this pride or a pride further away here in this reserve. Still nice and cool this morning. There's that watering hole not too far away from where we are, so maybe these lions head there at some stage for a bit of a drink, help let that digest that food. But I think if they do leave this carcass, those vultures are going to come straight down and scavenge from what's left. And that would be the end of the zebra for them, because there are numerous vultures waiting up above us.
The lone wildebeest has changed mind. It came very close to the water, but what she's doing at the moment is to eat the very short grass near the river. I think a decision not to cross has been made. I'm not surprised that she'll come back. But again, as I said earlier, she doesn't look to be in very good shape to me. And you notice she's struggling as she walks away from the river and climbing the rocks. But still very convinced that her best location is the other side of the river. Quite a number of diseases will affect these animals out here, and my guess is she could be suffering from any of those. Could be anthrax, it could be anything that's not right with her health. Toppies remain in the same position they were before, but if you look carefully, you can tell these are two different species of animals, because the toppies are on their own, and behind them we got the zebras. So that gnu hopefully is going to make it. But we have seen sometimes some of the predators being able to target these animals, and they can tell from a distance, especially the hyenas. Hyenas are very quick to learn an animal that's not doing very well. And it could be anything. It could even be a snake bite. You know, out here in the bushes, so many things would go wrong. You know, as I say, it could be a snake bite, and then still suffering from the venom of the snake, be it a puff adder or any other snake, black mamba, or it could have some other health issues like anthrax, as I said. Now this topi is slowly and surely coming towards the river. They've done that a few times. I'm trying to remember if I've ever seen a topi like in that shape of that wildebeest. Topis tend to do very well. I don't remember seeing a sick topi or one that have lost weight, that looks thin. In general, topis tend to do very well. Same case to zebras. And zebras, we are always very quick to learn of their condition once we see like their mane on top of their necks falling on one side. We're always very quick to tell when a zebra is not doing very well. Now the zebras are zeroing in and coming close to the topis. And I'm trying to imagine the zebras might give the pressure to the topis to cross. Again, the thing is, I'll just have to wait right here.
All right, guys, so we're just going to move our position quickly. We had some buffalo, but they moved behind that thicket. It's two males. The one isn't looking good, though. It seems like he is going to become food for, I'd say, one of the scavenging animals in the reserve, most likely brown hyenas soon, or maybe even spotted hyenas. But just coming over this dune, there's a waterhole not too far away from here, so I'm pretty sure they went to have a drink of water, and now they're going to start feeding now that it's been warming up a bit. But yeah, when we get a little closer, I'll show you that one individual is really not looking good. Maybe an older boy, and with it being end of winter now, the
Back, everybody. Sorry about that technical difficulties. Trying to bring you live broadcasts from wild and wonderful locations sometimes has its difficulties, but I heard of elephant have reacted. Let me just move for you here, Glenn. Have reacted to something. I don't know what it is, but now they're calming down. Something in the air wafted to them. Apologies for the roof there. Something in the air wafted to them, and this female has now moved to the rest of the herd that was with her to join more of the herd that was a little bit off to the side. There we go. Look at this one on the right. There we go. So typical behavior of an elephant trying to figure out something. That nose in the air, trying to smell. The wind has picked up quite strongly coming from the east. And a breeding herd of elephants, they do still have threats. Although they are big animals, they are still threats from predators such as lion. And if they are a little bit uncomfortable, they will often squeeze the babies in amongst them to keep them safe. Sorry about the radio. But they've calmed down again now that the herd is all surrounding. Female using a tusk to break the branches. Carly, I don't actually offhand know the exact population. The Greater Kruger National Park is quite large, and the last survey, I thought it was up to 20,000, but I think I'm mistaken because I heard someone else mention 17. I don't actually know the actual population now of elephants, but elephants are moving freely throughout all the private game reserves that adjoin the Kruger and the Greater Kruger National Park. So that's 4.4 million hectares is the Kruger itself. And then there's an enormous section, another 2.2 into Limpopo Transfrontier National Park over to Mozambique, and then all of the private reserves here on the west. It's a very big area, but it's in the region of 20,000 elephants. I do stand to be corrected. I haven't seen a recent survey of elephant population. But in the Kruger, the population is very, very healthy. It's a very big population, much bigger than it ever was in the past. You need me to move there, Clip. Let me just turn my nose slightly so that we can actually see these elephants moving. There we go. Okay, well, we're going to stay here with this herd, and hopefully they head on down towards the watering hole for a drink.
I'm with a different kind of herd, an Impala herd, and everyone is very, very, very skittish. The slightest sound is making them all jump. Some are still eating, but those ones on the fringes are very, very alert. Especially if we look over onto the left side there. There's some individuals that are very, very, very alert. Look at that. Hello, Lions Ate My Mum. You'd like to know if any of the animals here have winter plumage. They don't. I think we've been asked that question. I think a long time ago I was asked that question as well, and actually went and looked it up. And they don't. In the northern hemisphere, many animals will grow a winter coat. But down here it seems that their coat is sufficient to protect them against the cold. And our winters don't get too ridiculous. I mean, I'm complaining and it's 13 degrees Celsius, 56 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm sure lots of people, like Dylan, for example, would put his feet in the water at that temperature. And the animals here seem to be still comfortable with the coat that they have. The male is just getting into shot now. There you go. He is very, very alert. Now this is why I like to watch Impala. You can also see that they're quite huddled together, also for safety. He's still chewing away though. He's cud. I love to watch this. And then he'll swallow and throw another one back up into his mouth after he's done chewing thoroughly. Wait for it. Oh, you're too alert to get another one up. Oh, there it comes. Love watching them do that. Now the wind is doing no favors for these Impala, because all the sound waves, and they're relying on their sound, sense of sound and smell, to be able to detect predators and survive. And the wind is distorting the sound, and they're freaking out from one angle and another angle, and it's also distorting the sense of smell. So they're going to huddle nicely together to protect themselves.
Hello and welcome once again. I have left the lions and now I am by the river, and here I have a big pool of hippos very fast asleep. Believe me, this is totally new hippos for you guys. I haven't shown you these ones. I haven't been to this area, and it's another big pool. This is another very sharp bend of the river, rarely used to cross by any animals apart from giraffe and elephants, but animals come to drink and just leave. These hippos, I'm sure they're not used, to seeing humans or vehicles, because it's a very secluded area, actually a very pristine, a very beautiful section of the river. Looks like they don't have a very big bank, and they have to make do
with whatever little they have. So they are, resting very close to the bank there. Yeah, I don't know what that guy is doing there. Stella, you say it looks like a hippo parking bay or, lot. Yes, it does look like it. Yeah, looks like it's an straight parking, not angle parking over here. Yeah, but they're fast asleep, and you can tell they're finding space, more and more space. It's a pity that they don't have a beach like most of the hippos we've been showing you. This one, they have to make do with submerging themselves in the water a little bit. And this can give you an idea of how many, hippos we have, along the Mara. This is a good plus minus 15. And so, can you imagine every 100 meters for about 60 kilometers, 60 to 80 kilometers stretch through the Mara? Can you do that math? It's a lot of hippos. And they do very well because there is enough grazing land and there's no human-wildlife conflict here. Grazing is in abundance. And here looks like they're using one another as a pillow. Remember, these guys can't stay out for long because they can get sunburn. Although their skin secretes a mucus secretion that acts like sunblock, it is not very efficient. So they need to keep their skin moist and stay most of the day inside the water. Yeah, looking at them, Laura, thank you for your question. How are you today? You ask what's a collective noun or a group of hippos called. You can call it a pod of hippos or a pool of hippos. Yes, that's what we call it. And they can be from 1 to up to 30 or even more, depending on how big the beach is and also how well the dominant male is, taking care of the females. Remember, of all this, there is one particular male and the rest mostly are females. Males are sometimes tolerated only when there's no female coming into estrus. When they come into estrus, then there is chaos. He doesn't tolerate anybody within that area. Yeah, what a beautiful place. Look at that. And the river here is very calm. There's no rapids. So you can tell it's very, very deep. Look at how they've kept that grass across so low. I think we need a hippo for everybody who's got a big lawn.
Welcome back to the woodlands of Djuma, everybody, where our elephant herd is slowly making their way towards us. We might be surrounded by them shortly, which is going to be great. Here's a little one with the bird poo on his head. There's a little boy. He's picked up a stick there that one of the others have ground to take the bark off. He's now going to try pick it up to see if it can also put it in its mouth. The process of corkscrewing. Oh, that one's going to just walk into frame. Okay, you're going to come and say hello, are you? Yes, going to come show us how big, scary he is. Hello, young one. It's okay. We're very friendly over here. Use the tusk to snap off that branch. leaning against the tree. Johnson, it probably could. And the baby's very, very heavy. They're born 110, so 220, 230 kilograms. So most people I know that weigh that are able to break things. They're not really adept to it. They don't really know what they're doing quite now. The youngsters are not very good at breaking things at the moment, but it's the adults that do a lot of the breaking and the facilitation. You can see that female there is actually pushed up an entire small tree. It's now going to feed on the bark. Going to rip the bark off now. Completely uprooted that tree, disturbed the ground. Now it's going to use its foot, its tusk, to break the bark off of the tree, using its trunk and its tusk and a bit of leverage. Oh, it's going to pull it out. Now its foot. Let me just move up a touch so we can see this. See how it's going to use all body parts now to access the roots of that tree. Yes, come put it out in the open. That is a red bush willow. Ooh, that must be tasty. Now this other teenager is going to push her out the way. These are all boys. Is that a boy? Now the behavior that's happening right here is a dominance display. Elephants, when they are dominated, will turn their shoulder. Here, this little youngster wants a piece. See what I mean by facilitation? Someone else will break it, and then a youngster will get an opportunity. Now, this is a teenage boy here that pushed away a female. He's now going to use his foot and his trunk to access that food. And that little youngster is watching very closely, even though he's being shooed away, exactly how it's done.
So, all right, guys, it would seem like I was completely wrong. We tried to reposition and drove literally in a full circle to come back to the same point where we initially saw the buffalo and had a better visual. They had moved towards the water rather than away from it, so it would seem like they are still heading to go there, which is quite typical out here. You find the herbivores, especially the larger ones, going towards the water, typically around the warmer parts of the day. You know, that's just to cool down. For a buffalo, they would love spending some time in the water when it's nice and warm, just to relax a little bit, and also to avoid being at the water at the same time when there's predators around. So like lions and so on, they typically drink early morning, late afternoon, or during the night, you know, normally. So for something like a buffalo to go to the water now at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, would be a much safer option for them to go. But if we have a look now, guys, with what we were looking at earlier, that individual that's walking at the back, he's an old boy. You can see he's not walking as fast, his head is hanging, and when you have a closer look at him, you'll see those hip bones sticking out. I had a look at him with the binoculars earlier. Even his face seems quite old. So it would seem like he's got not too long to go still. Possibly his teeth is the most important thing that has worn down. And because of that, he's... Megan, so yeah, that's completely right. We just had a comment from Megan that says this buffalo has seen some battles, and yes, definitely. You know, with male buffaloes, especially when they get into their later part of their life, when they go into their prime, you'll find that they fight quite a lot when it comes to mating rights and so on. Also, you know, keeping themselves alive, staying away from danger. They quite often fight with
things like lions, predators, regardless, mostly lions though. Also, you will find them quite often, especially when it comes to their faces, rubbing them against things like trees, especially when you come into the low veld. They do that with like the tamboti trees. They rub their horns against that to be able to get that poisonous milky latex onto their horns, which acts as a really good insect repellent. But then quite often they get a scratch here and there in the face. But guys, just to move away from the buffalo, you know, the bush is so interesting. It's you quite often stop and you look at something like a buffalo, and right next to you, you find something even more interesting. Have a look at this. This is an old zebra carcass, or the skin of one at least. But this has been lying here for, I want to say, at least 2 months, judging by how dry it is. There's no more meat on the skin, so nothing at all. And this is just a very good example to show how long things take to really weather or to break down in the Kalahari. With a lack of moisture, you find that weathering process or the decomposing process takes quite a bit longer. I mean, typically, when you're in the low veld, this would have been either gobbled up by a hyena, or it would have decomposed and just broken down and become part of the soil, only remaining or only leaving the bones and so on behind. So this is really cool, especially being able to see all of these stripes so clearly still on the skin. I mean, look at that. That's almost perfect. And it's just stunning to be able... Yeah, no, this is wow. I mean, it's incredible to still be able to see this. And, you know, it's always important not to pick up these things with your hands, so I'm not going to do that. You never know what type of creepy crawlies are underneath it, but have a look at how well preserved this hoof is still. And there you can see that little frog, which is typical about a zebra, but also, I mean, you see that with horses as well. But with a zebra, even more so. You'll see what we call that little frog, the little triangle at the back of the hoof, which imprints quite well in the sand when they're walking. So yeah, this is just, I mean, it's sad to see that something lost its life, but then again, it's also pretty cool to see how well it's been preserved with a lack of moisture being around.
Welcome back, everybody, where we've got wonderful feeding behavior from elephants. Learning all the time. This youngster is teaching the one next to it, the smaller one, exactly what happens with feeding. That little one at the bottom had a go at the roots earlier of that tree that was pushed over. It's trying to use its foot and didn't quite know what to do, so put the root in its mouth and was actually pulling the tree along for a moment. It was very cute. Very, very cute. Very important sort of life lessons being learned every day. And it is a little boy. He's going back to its tree. Here we go. Oh, it's going to be so much fun. Show us now. No, I'm going to go follow Mum. No, I'm going to pick this up. Come on, little one. Spending time with elephants, especially when they are youngsters in the herd, is so exciting. Oh, look at the female at the back. She's on her knees. She's trying to, the one at the back left there, Glenn, she's trying to access, this one's, it's all happening now. She's on her knees trying to access the roots. She's pushed over that tree and obviously is struggling to break it. Now she's got her head all the way down and using the tusk to try and rip it up. And see how her youngster's right there. Here we go. She's got it out the ground. Well done. Now this is exactly what we talk about how elephants change the structure, of the vegetation. That tree that has now been removed from the ground is now going to die. unfortunately, but is changing the shade dynamic. Elephants are accessing it to feed on the roots of the tree for the medicinal value that they have. The nutrients, these plants are all adapted for survival in an environment where fire is a very real thing. And so nutrients are kept in the soil, in the roots. The little youngster has learned that. This one is going to access the grass as well with the roots by using its foot. Even that digging is disturbance. A lot of you said you haven't seen an adult elephant on its knees before doing what it just did. Well, there you have it. Here we have a female that's about to walk in front of us here. And look how big she is. She stands up tall with her ears out, walking sideways. It's not an aggressive posture. It's just her walking between us and the herd and letting us know. Sorry about the pole, everybody. Letting us know that she is there. We go back to these youngsters over here. This little youngster's on his knees and now it's running. Oh, little nonsense. Is that Mama? That must be Mama there. Yes, that must be Mum. So I've seen elephants on their knees a few times, especially when it comes to mud wallowing or when they go down to lie down, they go onto their knees to then lower the body down. But it's quite interesting to see the feeding, them actually going down on the ground to access those roots. Goes to show how important the roots are to elephants at this time of year. And that behavior was directly being shown to the youngster who will learn, okay, Mum, I see how you did that. And then it would also taste the roots afterwards to know exactly what it's looking for. Be able to smell it, taste it, and then that is a memory of how to access food locked away that they can pass on to their offspring.
Once in a while, we've got people who will wonder if elephants will cross the river. Once in a while, we'll always wonder if elephants also cross the river, and they do, like, the elephants with Steve, but they don't do the crossing that we see with the wildebeest or with the zebras, like what you can see there, or topis or other animals. Elephants will just come very slowly, walk across the river from one side to the other. Now, our animals have remained where they were, but what they have done, they have gone back and forth from one side, still on the same side of the river, going 100 meters that way and maybe 100 meters backwards, still looking for a place to cross. Where we are now, where those topis are, this is the closest, I would say, they have come to the river. And if you look carefully, they seem to be, one topi is going away, but the bigger number of them still have remained in the same position. Where we are now at that particular point is where I think if they're going to cross, it's here. The gradient is quite low, as much as there are crocs. You can see there's a croc to the left of your screen there. But to me, I'm very convinced this could be the most likely position where these topis are going to cross. This reptile, as usual, coming out of the water to bask and get a bit of sun. But you can see she's submerged, not the whole body is out of the water. Depending maybe on the requirements of the sun that she needs. If, of course, she needs more, she's going to walk out all the way to the bank of the river and spend quite a number of hours there basking. Being cold-blooded, that's how they are able to maintain their body temperatures. Kathy was asking if we have any water snakes in the river. Well, not like the rattlesnakes. We do not have any snakes that I can know of here in the Mara. The only snakes we see or personally have witnessed in this river are the African rock python. Once in a while, we have seen the African rock python either on the edge of the water or just swimming across to the other end. But looking at other snakes, water snakes here in the Mara River, not that I know of. Topi, keep coming, keep going, don't be shy. Either come for a drink or just come and cross on the other side. Not much difference of the vegetation of where they are and where we are, but again, you never know what they'll be looking for. If they think they have depleted the quality grass where they are, they'll be tempted to come across to the other side. And fortunately or unfortunately, they have to cross this very dangerous river. Dangerous, of course, if any one of them is caught by the crocs or lions hiding those bushes. But of course, it may not be dangerous because once in a while, they just come right across without any issues. They've gone behind that bush there, and they may want to change the location. And that's what they keep doing once in a while. The zebras have remained where they were. And what we need is to have big numbers of these animals for them to cross. Waiting to see if they'll come out through that bush or not. And you can see the current in the river is quite slow now, which means not much water. Unless we get more rains this afternoon or tomorrow, the levels might keep going down. Once in a blue moon, this river has dried up completely, but that takes years and years for us to see this river without any water. So behind those bushes there are where the topis are, and I will remain here to chance if they'll come out.
Welcome back, everybody, to And Beyond Punda, where, like we said, youngsters coming back for seconds. This young male has come straight back to this zebra for his, it's probably not his second helping, but for more. And what's quite interesting to see here, if we pan a little bit further to the left, you can actually see tears in the rump of the zebra towards the back, and that I can imagine is from where mom initially maybe tried to take it down and it didn't work. But that's one way of telling survivors apart from others in zebra herds is when you see scars like that, because when they heal, the heal mix match, so it will be black to white stripes and vice versa. But I thought that was quite interesting to notice, and that might have been from the initial attempt maybe, or, I can only guess one or two attempts, and then the third time lucky. But yeah, it's quite hilly here where we are, with these undulations, maybe crept up on it and it stumbled maybe after the third go, because off to our left is quite a steep embankment. But this, zebra just not strong enough, or not as day, sadly, for this mom who's fast asleep a little bit out of picture on the left. This youngster's got his head stuck into the rack of ribs you can see here to our left, and you'd think that his face would be covered in blood, but that's all now gone. It's really relatively dried up, and you can see it looked like when we drove here it was killed a little bit further away. We saw the stomach contents of this zebra, and then mom would have dragged it to what she thought was a little bit more of a protected spot, sheltered spot.
Well, bon appetit, lions, and maybe they need to stash their kill to somewhere they can eat it later on in the day. Well, we might be saying bon appetit to the croc here, but these topis, I think, are very wary and scared of what would happen to them if they dare to cross. There's a crocodile right there, bottom left of your screen, and not very sure if these toppies have seen her or not. They're all focused there, but don't be surprised to know they can't see her. But they'll always imagine there's some sort of danger anywhere, because I'm sure they must have crossed this river before, thinking or guessing, so chances are they have to be very careful. A good sensible number, and I'll not be surprised if they choose to cross. Remember I said earlier, if they look in this area where we are, this crossing point, this is the easiest for them to cross. I'm not sure whether the wildebeest have been seen coming to the river every other minute and making difficult decision. It's back and now running towards some Egyptian geese. Do you want to cross? Givia, you like to know how the crocs store their kills. What crocs will do, they do what we call a death roll. And the first thing they'll do is just to jump very quickly to the prey. And more often than not, they'll always try and get the neck. If they miss the neck, then the back or the hindquarters. Then they do what you call a death roll, or just to make sure the prey drowns, and once it drowns, and they're guaranteed it is dead, they'll keep it in the water. So that's kind of the refrigeration the crocs will have, because they know cold water will keep the prey as fresh as possible. That's how they stash, their prey. Unlike, lions or cheetahs or leopards, we'll always see them dragging, like the zebra you saw being dragged maybe towards the bushes to keep it fresh. Sometimes you have seen lions just scraping the ground to cover their prey with some soil. Crocodiles have not, they don't have a big problem trying to stash their kill to keep it fresh. The water, with its low temperatures, is always good enough. Toppies can see the wildebeest on the other side, and maybe they're wondering, you come over, or do we come that side? A little wind blows, and they'll get panic mode, and they're like, no, something could be wrong here. Looking at the toppies and the zebras and the wildebeest, and finding out who makes the very quickest decision to cross the river, personally I would say the zebras. Zebras followed with wildebeest, and then number 3 would be the toppies. The toppies are rather slow to make that important decision. And again, we'll keep waiting right here.
We have finally found the giraffe that walked by us early this morning. There he is, having the time of his life at that bush. I love the way their lips and their tongue move so delicately almost. They can pick just exactly what they need off the branches, and they'll try to avoid thorns as much as possible, or spines. But if one or two slip in, they've got extra thick saliva, strong lips, and a really strong tongue to be able to swallow them without a problem. But they'll tend to avoid them. They can be quite specific with the leaves they want with those lips. I think it's time for a quiz on this giraffe, and giraffes in general. Can you tell me what the 4 species of giraffes are? After lots of research and mitochondrial DNA analysis, that's the DNA that's passed on from mother to daughter. Not always, but we'll get into that in a different time. But it's a good way to trace genetic diversity and different species. So there's 4 species, but there are 9 subspecies in total, including those 4 species. So really there's 5 subspecies. If you can tell me that, I'll take the 9 subspecies. or the 4 species. And you can tell me using the hashtag CGTNWild or hashtag WildEarth. We can focus on the 4 species and then we can discuss the subspecies. There's only about 100,000, 110,000 giraffes in the world. And answer that question and let me know.
So we've just found what looks like a carcass of an impala. I don't know what it was killed by, but I think the hyenas have stolen it, and there they go, they're stealing it again. There's a young impala. Amazing, there's a second hyena coming, running in, wants to also steal this thing. Sorry if you can hear noise in the background, we are quite close to a fence line. Look at those hyenas fighting over the carcass, you can hear them. I suspect there was a leopard that chased this impala towards the fence line and managed to catch it. Can you hear the noise? Lots of twittering and laughing and yapping. That's why hyenas have the nickname, spotted hyenas, of laughing hyenas. Because of that yappering and twittering that they make when they are fighting over a carcass. I'm going to try and see if I can reposition, maybe to get a oh, it looks like they might move. Look at them quickly tearing off. Remember, there are lions in the area. We haven't seen any lions here, but these hyenas making noise like that, it's going to attract other animals, and so they're going to try and eat as quickly as they can. Oh, here comes what looks like a bird of prey. Looks a bit like a tawny eagle that wants to try and get a bit of the carcass. I'm going to try and see if I can't reposition us in a little bit to try and see if we can... oh, no, there they go. They're running off. They're running off. There's a third hyena coming. There's a third hyena. Look, look, look. They're just going to... Wow, that's incredible. Oh, the tawny eagle just stole a piece of the carcass as well. No way. There goes the hyena stealing its prize. They're probably the biggest, strongest of the hyenas that are there. It's stealing this impala and running off to where it can feed on it a bit quieter. I'm going to try and see if we can find a way to get that. I can see where it's running. I'm just watching where it goes for now. But how cool was that, eh? There goes the tawny eagle has landed there again. That's amazing. So we literally... We just came across this, someone said they saw a carcass from the road just outside the reserve. We drove along here and found, oh, look, there goes the tawny eagles, vultures are all coming in now to see what's left. Oh, that's amazing. So we just came to investigate, now it's run off. What I want to do is just hit this road and try and see if we can get a bit closer to where that hyena left to see if we can find out if it's going to eat somewhere close to us. But what an interesting development. Who knew that was going to happen? We were thinking this is a cold morning, it's going to be quiet, and then all of a sudden this crazy thing just happened. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and take us a bit further into the reserve along this very infrequently used road, and hopefully we're going to get another view of those hyenas feeding. It's amazing, on such a cold day, all the vultures are still very active. They've all landed in these trees nearby to see if they can steal anything that's left of this carcass. It's amazing, there are actually 3 different vulture species here. Actually, while we're here, let's actually look at them because you don't get to see them often. In that tree just over there, I'm sure you can see all those vultures. Now, there's a hooded vulture, which I don't think is in that tree right now. But then there's also 2 other vultures. One is a Cape vulture and a white-backed vulture. So on that tree there, I think it's the one at the furthest back. So those are white-backed vultures, and there's one at the lowest part of the tree, and that I think is a Cape vulture, which is a very, very rare bird. Now, maybe if you can punch in for us just to see if we can have a look at its eye. I don't know if you'll be able to get any closer than that. Is that Max? Okay, because if it has a pale eye, then that is a Cape vulture, which is not often seen. Amazing to see all these vultures here. So to have 3 different vulture species all in the same place is pretty awesome. You don't get to see it often. There's still one hyena feeding on some thing that was left behind. Probably not much, to be honest. A bit of the rib cage or a piece of skin or something. You see it there, crunching away. get away from my food. You see it just chase the vultures. See how the tail is held up there like a bottle brush? That's a sign of great excitement in a hyena. So when they get away from my food. See, everywhere the vultures land, it thinks there might be food there, and it's just running and chasing away any of the vultures that are landing in order to get whatever food might be left there. It's going to go right back to where the carcass was to sniff there, I think, to see if there's anything left. Oh, we don't have any. Don't come to us. All right. That one there is going right towards the edge of the fence line. So as I said, we're right here on the fence line. So there you can see where whatever animal it was chased it towards the fence. And the hyena's just sniffing at what might still be left there. But let's leave this hyena for now, since it's here working at the fence line. It's not going to find much, unfortunately. And let's head into where the other hyenas ran. This one is still just chasing vultures. There's nothing left there. Let's go and see where this other hyena went and see what we can find. How much excitement. But I really wonder what was happening here before. You know, it's like an investigation. I don't think the hyenas killed that impala. I think something else killed it, and the hyenas actually stole it. So this is where the carcass was, and the hyena ran down here somewhere. Hyenas are one of my most favorite animals to watch because there's always interesting stuff happening. You know, often with other predators, they just lie down and they sleep all the day. But hyenas, because they're scavengers, they'll be up and about looking for whatever they can steal from another predator, doing their thing, you know, and, you know, amazingly family-oriented. People often, you know, Disney movies have painted this terrible picture, you know, from The Lion King of how, like, awful and dark and evil hyenas are. But they're not at all. They're animals like any other that are just living their life the best way they can. They fit in a specific niche. Okay, I think I see what is almost certainly a Cape vulture. Let's try and have another look. I don't know if you can see it through there. So there's two vultures sitting on a tree, not the one on the tallest tree, but the one just below it. Yeah, so try and punch into the one that's a bit lower. So you see the one it's like amongst the sticks. Oh, it's so difficult to see from this distance. It's very pale in color, and it had pale primaries as well, but I cannot see if it has pale eyes from this distance. And neither can I see the one that's in the tree. What about the one that's in the tree there? It might be a bit easier. I don't know. I don't know if you've all seen a Cape vulture before on one of these on one of these drives. I don't know if it's a new bird for many of you, but one of these birds is definitely a Cape vulture. So whilst we investigate what's happening here, we'll keep you informed.
Welcome back to the watering hole. It's going to allow you to enjoy this for a moment.
All right, guys, so we just found a pair of bat-eared foxes. As you can see, they are naturally shy. Were moving away from us. We had to position the vehicle just to get signal quickly. What we're going to do is check where they go and lie down again. But as you can see, yes, they're cute, eh? Big fluffy tails, huge ears. But yeah, they're being difficult at the moment. But yeah, they were really, really cute, eh? Or they still are. And it's typical for us to have the mated pair just by themselves at the moment. They typically, you'll find them now after June, July. They kick out their youngsters, the previous babies. And then they have to disperse those youngsters and go and make a home of their own. The mating pair behind. And so quite typical to see during this time of the year. Only mom and dad remaining at the original area that they were operating in. But you can find them in quite large groups. I've seen groups of up to 5, 6 where it's mom and dad and then maybe 4 youngsters. And they're quite social with one another. They don't really compete as much, viciously, like fighting over territories and so on. They've been recorded to find up to 4 groups within a half square kilometer radius, feeding and interacting with one another. They're quite playful, these little guys. And if you could see how big those ears are, even when they were running away, that's their primary sense of locating food. They use their ears to hear or to listen for beetle larvae or termites under the ground or all of those things, burrowing insects, those types of things, primarily feeding on insects, but they have also been recorded eating little lizards like the barking geckos that we had calling a couple of nights ago. They love them. Also things like little snakes, scorpions, all of those types of things. Even if they do come across them, little birds, probably like the ground nesting birds, where they find either the eggs or the chicks that has hatched that can't fly away yet. They'll eat that as well. Also burrowing bat-eared foxes, they typically burrow about 1 meter deep, and the tunnel network extending to about 3 meters long. So yeah, just very happy to have found these guys. And so we're going to try and see, these guys moved out a little bit, so we're going to try and see if we can't find another pair or so and possibly get a closer visual so that you can just get all of that in.
Who knows? It will be wonderful to see the bat-eared foxes again, and it will even be more wonderful to see these topis cross the river. They have come very close. I would say they're just about 5 meters away from the river, and I think it may take sometimes seconds when the first one will go in and then the rest will follow. This is the closest I would say they have come to the water. And I'm just wondering whether this time they'll do what I've been waiting for. They know what to expect in that water. Some big reptiles like those crocs. Notice how that one blends in very well with the rocks. Camouflages and almost impossible to see her. That is very well camouflaged right there, super hidden. And they'll just walk, cross the river to the other side and walk right to her, and very easily the croc will jump to one of them. Now, if animals will migrate and move away, crocodiles do not move. And these reptiles have a very interesting story to talk about.
On the banks and beneath the surface of the Mara River, there lurks a reptile with quite the reputation. For nature's favorite villain, pickings have been slim for the past few months, but the wait is over. The migration has arrived. They slink beneath the muddy surface as the herds approach, drawn to greener pastures on the other side, the buffet table is laid and the feast begins. The world's most powerful jaws snap at wildebeest, zebra, and gazelle. Africa's biggest crocodiles will feast like this. And then, until the next herd is drawn to the water's edge, they will bask on the banks content.
Welcome back live to Djuma in the Sabi Sands, where more than one herd of elephant has emerged from the thickets to come down and drink. And they're not too concerned with the crocodiles here. I haven't myself personally seen a crocodile in this watering hole. It does not mean it's not possible. Crocodiles can occur anywhere within 50-kilometer radius of a crocodile-infested river. And well, there's no river infested with crocodiles more than that of the Mara, I suppose. I think the Zambezi is another one that's got enormous crocodiles. Right here, our breeding herd of elephants with a whole lot of young bulls have been drinking, quenching their thirst, and slowly but surely will be moving back off into the thickets to continue eating. It's a non-stop process for them. There we go. Just put its trunk in the other one's mouth, with a taste. A little bit of dominance going on between those two. But we're going to follow our herd as they continue on away from the watering hole.
Our giraffe has decided to play ball with us this morning. And he's having a very nice time eating away. You can see that he's quite a dark bull. And bulls start to turn this color between about 7 and 8 years old. And by the time they're 10 or so, they start to get truly, truly dark. And it's thought that testosterone production actually drives this color change. Look at that tongue. All right, so I did ask you a quiz. I asked you for what are the 4 species of giraffe and what are their subspecies. And we're ready. Give them to us. What are the answers? Kiwi Sue, you say reticulated Rothschild, Maasai and Southern. Okay. The Rothschild is not considered a separate species any longer. Linda! Well done, Linda. Linda has said it's the Maasai giraffe, the northern giraffe, the reticulated giraffe, and the southern giraffe. Now, the subspecies of those, so the southern giraffe, which is what you're looking at here, you get the subspecies of the Angolan giraffe as well as the South African giraffe, or the Southern African giraffe. And as for the Maasai giraffe, there's no subspecies for the Maasai giraffe. And the northern giraffe has 3 subspecies, of which the West African giraffe is the smallest population of giraffes in Africa. There's only about 500 to 600 individuals of the West African giraffe. There's also the Kordofan giraffe and the Nubian giraffe, which fall into that northern giraffe species category. So they are subspecies. The Giraffe Conservation Foundation has done a lot of research in trying to understand giraffes and their diversity. And like I said, there's only about 110,000 giraffes in the world in the wild. And of that, the southern African giraffe species has the most individuals, with about 54,000. But the actual South African giraffe, the one you're looking at right here, we have about 37,000 of them. When you think about the numbers of the animals we have, it actually puts the whole thing into perspective. And you think you are seeing one of 37,000 individuals in the world of this specific type of giraffe. And that's quite special. The number seems, you say, oh, I've got 37,000 Smarties. It does seem like it's so many. But when you think about the fact that they've got to breed, they've got to survive, they've got to find habitat that isn't being destroyed and that is sufficient for them, it's special to see one of those 37,000. Now there were some great go-away birds that were in the Mulwati shouting quite a bit, and I see that this bull is looking down into the Mulwati every now and then. So I think I'm going to have a look. And also, congratulations, Linda. You did well, and thank you, everybody. It's always good to learn about giraffe conservation.
Welcome back to And Beyond Pinned, everybody. Back with the same 4 lions who, one by one, have slowly started making their way to a bit more of a sheltered area. This chap here keeps yawning and threatening to... There he gets up. Bit of a stretch. Have a look at how uncomfortably full that belly looks. They're all panting, uncomfortably trying to help digest that food, but I think he's going to follow the rest of his brothers into that spot just behind, in the direction that he's heading now. The only one that's remaining at the carcass is Mom, and I think that's where experience goes to show, because if she too disappears, those vultures who were circling above us earlier are still there, could potentially come in and scavenge off that zebra. I think that's going to be them for the day. Lovely little shady patch there, bare ground, overcast conditions, a little bit of a cool breeze blowing. Those are 3 happy boys that have now disappeared out of picture in that spot. There, Mom, yeah, like I said, I can't imagine her to get up anytime soon to go and join them. But I might leave them be for the morning and come back later this afternoon to see if they're back feeding.
Well, good luck to finding the animals feeding later. Elephants, that's what I love about elephants, is that they're always active. Herders finished drinking, and now, do you want to just go to those bulls on the right there? They're all going to play. This is when young bulls are at their best, after they've had a bit of food. Breeding herds have come together, and now all the bulls are going to see who's the biggest and strongest. These are all teenagers, of course, pushing and shoving each other. Oh, the wind has really picked up. You can spend all day with a herd of elephants, and they'll always be doing something. You can probably hear the wind in my hat. You can see that it's been drinking. So if you do find elephants and you see the trunk is wet like that, you tell that they have already drunk. So you know that they probably won't go and drink again. It's good to sort of track and sign, I suppose. Or if they're covered in water, you know that they've been somewhere where there's moisture. And now they will continue and do a very slow, methodical movement away from the water as they feed, and then eventually get thirsting again before heading all the way back to whichever watering hole they choose. It's also possible that they're going to go through a little bit of a rest period now. Some of the females might just find a shady spot or just a spot to just stand for a while and rest the trunk. Some of them might continue feeding. Oof, that wind is really picked up now. So the elephants moved slowly to the watering hole. Lots of action, lots of activity with regards to feeding, and now they move slowly away. So as I've discussed before, the immediate surroundings around watering holes receive an enormous amount of grazing and browsing pressure from herbivores. Elephants, wildebeest, buffalo, impala. And we're going to try and move up a little bit closer to these ellies and try and shelter ourselves a little bit from the wind.
All right, guys, so back on our way to camp, we came across this really interesting crime scene. So our heaviest flying bird in southern Africa was brutally murdered here in some fashion. It's a Corey-busted that didn't make it over here. You can see all the feathers if you have a look at this one. This is particularly indicative of it being a Corey-busted, but you can see here is where it all happened. And so we're thinking that it might be a caracal, either that or a leopard, but with the Corey-busted being so big, it couldn't have, well, it's highly unlikely that it was something like an African wildcat or so, just because of their sheer size. I don't think an African wildcat can easily overpower them like that. So my personal opinion was that it was a caracal that did this, and it would seem like after it happened over here, it was plucked a little bit, and then maybe fed on it, and then the carcass was carried down like that. Initially, I would have thought the wind would have blown the feathers like this, because for the last 2-3 days, we had the wind coming from the south. However, the wind has changed overnight, and it's coming from the north, so the likelihood of the feathers being blown from this side to there is very unlikely. So I would say that the kill happened here, and then whatever killed it, caracal or leopard, my personal opinion, caracal, dragged it off and went in that direction then. But yeah, just always cool to see all of these things, you know, with a... You always look out for, like, the same thing with those buffalo that we saw earlier. When we stopped looking at the buffalo and just looked around us, there was a perfectly good old zebra skin lying there. And with this thing as well, there's always such interesting things, however small it may be, to see and to experience in the bush. It's just stunning. But yeah, really cool to just see this. You don't often get to see this. So we had a really interesting question just now. Christopher said, what couldn't have been a jackal? And yes, by all means. I didn't even think of that. Thank you for reminding me about it. From who? Twitter freak. Sorry, I mispronounced you there. Very good question. So by all means, it could have been a jackal. It could have been where the Corey-busted was maybe sleeping here, and he came around and just snuck up on it and grabbed it. So yes, black-backed jackal, by all means, definitely good observation there. Like I said, I didn't even think of that. I immediately thought cat, which is wrong. But yes, definitely black-backed jackal. They can do this as well. As a matter of fact, I know of stories where So, Monique, very good question. I had a look before you guys came to me. No, I can't see any tracks. So there's no. She asked if there's any caracal tracks or leopard or jackal tracks around. Unfortunately, it does look like there's been quite a bit of activity around here during the night. So I can't pick up on a particular track. There is, however, what seems like, but it's difficult to really say. Could be a jackal that came around sniffing here, or maybe even something like a bat-eared fox. However, I would rather go for black-backed jackal. If you have there's a little track over here. But that, like I said, very good question in the beginning for Twitter Freak, that it could have been a black-backed jackal. However, the track that I'm picking up over here now is, it's difficult to say when that happened. So it could have been after the kill had happened. They came and sniffed around here and so on. So no caracal tracks, no leopard tracks. There is, however, black-backed jackal tracks around here. But like I said, the scene was disturbed quite a bit. There was gemsbok walking over here and all of those types of things. So difficult to pick up a track at the moment. It's also, very likely that this could have happened the day before and not last night. But no tracks other than the jackal tracks that's operating around here at the moment.
Welcome back to Juma and our elephants. CSI in the bush is always so exciting to try to figure out what's gone on. This female elephant here, though, she's busy feeding on the torchwood, the green thorn, and hopefully, just go in there, you see that branch she's about to put in her mouth. Now, the thorns on that are unbelievable. It's in her mouth already, and she's busy eating it. Very sharp, powerful, double-spiked thorns that she's enjoying, thoroughly enjoying. And now she's going to find some more. She can't see what she's looking at there. She's using her trunk to find what stick she wants. And that would be very painful for you or I to do. Now she's going to use a tusk to snap it off. And there. Very sharp. There we go. She's going to pick a branch up off the floor. Have a look at the thorns on here, everybody. Look at those thorns. No, she doesn't want that one. But that cut and drop behavior, branches that get broken and left on the floor, they actually protect the grass and vegetation underneath them from other herbivores feeding on them. Another animal that might want to come and eat some grass won't be able to get through a small little branch that's been pushed down. So not only do they change the structure by damaging trees, they also leave vegetation on the ground, which creates wonderful little microclimates, microhabitats. Let me move forward here. You can't get her with the pole. Is that going to work? Almost. Sorry about the pole. There we go. There is an elephant hidden inside the torchwood hole.
We are watching a bee-eater do its thing. And what sounds like a very large vehicle going past on the main road. Do excuse it. The bee-eater is as interested in it. Oh, it's a little tractor. It's the sound. Bee-eater's wondering, what was that? It's so nice to see them in the sand. It's a nice spot. So if you look at the sand, it's kind of a one color, like a clean slate. And if things are moving on it, you're able to see it quite clearly. Where have you gotten to? Ah. I can hear them. I can hear a black-back puffback. Can you hear that? Like it's going, and then a whistle, because I can't whistle. That's why I just said the word whistle. Well, that was nice. At least we saw the bee eater, right? Now, usually they tend to come back to similar spots, so I was sitting for a few seconds, just like a minute, see if it'd come back. But it looks like they are off. I don't think I can see the black-back puffback either. That's okay. I'm going to go to the small little dam nearby. Hopefully there'll be more birds there too.
Surprisingly, considering how cold it is this morning, we've got a lot of bird activity. From those vultures, we now go to what's probably the most photographed bird in southern Africa. Do you know what it is? Can you give me your best guess? The colors are not very bright on this one because of the silhouette from the bright sky behind it, but I'm sure that you can figure it out. It's got a long tail with two streamers, quite a nice thick beak with a little bit of a hook on the end. It's puffed itself out quite a lot now. It's often a little bit more slender than this, but it's very cold, so it's trying to remain as warm as possible by puffing out its feathers. And it eats insects. It's waiting for some insects to go onto the ground in front of it, and it will swoop down and grab them and then probably go and land back on the exact same branch again. Remember, it's usually a very colorful bird. You can just see the colors there. It's got a bit of blue on the side there. You might see a little pinkish purpley sort of color just on the front there, on what would be its breast. All the fluffy feathers around its face protecting its eyes from those insects, which sometimes have very sharp edges when they grab them. What do you reckon it is? Whip, blue jay is a very good guess. It's in a very similar family as a blue jay. It's not a blue jay though. We don't get blue jays here in South Africa. Something similar though. Think of an African equivalent of a blue jay. Doesn't have a beautiful call. I think the blue jay has quite a nice call. This bird does not have a beautiful call. It's kind of like a lot of... maybe I shouldn't say that. Patrick, you're spot on. That is an African ostrich. You are correct, sir. It's not an ostrich. Ostrich is a little bit larger than this bird. But we do have ostriches in this area. They are occurring in the Kruger National Park. But as you can see, this bird sitting up in the tree with its neck is not quite as long. Sometimes an ostrich does like to bring its neck in, wind its neck in. But this bird is not an ostrich. So, we've got, as you can see, this bird has so I was saying before, it doesn't have a very beautiful call because it's so colorful. It uses its beautiful display. It has a wonderful display which is often called rolling, as it flies up into the air and then it waves its body and it rolls its body up and down all over, so it shows off all of its colors. And it's very acrobatic aerial display. Beverly and all the rest who said lilac-breasted roller, spot on. Well done. You're all knowing this bird quite well by now, with the fact that it is one of the most photographed birds in southern Africa, maybe even in the whole world, because of those beautiful colors. About 8 different colors on the body of a lilac-breasted roller. I'll show you those colors in a little bit, but for now what I wanted to do was actually show you a map of Pride Lands, if I can stop it from blowing around in the wind too much. So, as you can see with the map that I have, we have quite a large rectangular sort of area that we can drive on. And where we are right now is right there at Ndlovu Dam, right in the middle of this map. And we've done a big circuit of the whole reserve. We've gone from Ndlovu Dam in the middle, we've gone all the way along here to Marshall Road, all the way up past Leopard Koppies to Leopard Dam. We've done a loop down to the fence, all the way up past Red Earth, and then back down to Ndlovu Dam where there was nothing going on. And then we came all the way down, I think, along Twin Pans to Nsimbi, which is the southern fence line, which is just about there where we found this carcass. We weren't sure what happened. The hyena ran up here with it, so we followed. Couldn't find the hyena again. We found ourselves all the way back at Ndlovu Dam. So quite a big circuit of the whole reserve. Amazing what we've seen. We've seen a few giraffes. We've seen a couple of impalas. Not much else. You know, the hyenas were amazing. But, you know, activity is few and far between because animals are trying to remain hidden from this wind. You can see how this map is blowing and my hair is blowing. So it's very windy. And I think that with this wind, it means good hunting opportunities. So I believe probably a leopard or some other animal chased that impala towards the fence line where it had nowhere to go, caught the impala, and the hyenas came along and probably chased it off. And then when we drove up, we chased the hyenas off. And then there was a lot of that amazing activity, as we saw, with that with the hyenas then stealing the carcass and running off. So a lot of cool stuff. But you can see even this lilac-breasted roller, not really doing much this morning, trying to remain as still as possible. Remember, most animals need warmth in order to function, especially the insects that this bird eats. They will not be moving around much in this cold, windy weather. They'll be clinging to the trees and the branches, trying to remain hidden. And we'll stay at this dam a little longer and see if this roller does catch anything for breakfast.
Thanks, Mike. We're going to stay. We have stayed with our elephants, who have been, well, for the most part, feeding. You might have caught at the end of our last segment that little youngster came charging in to frame. No idea what's going on with him. He's just obviously been possibly bullied a little bit by some of the older elephants. Decided to come running back to Mum to tell her what's going on. It's really special and so peaceful to be in amongst these giants doing what they do. This is a big girl here who seems quite heavily pregnant. What's she going to do? She's going to feed on the bush above. Oh, okay. Jakarta, you want to know how often elephants sleep flat? Now, you don't often see it, like out in the wild. We often will find herds of elephant together, especially in the heat of the day, where the youngsters are lying down flat. But 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, we spent quite a bit of time using a thermal drone flying over Djuma, looking for nocturnal animals. And to be honest, we came across herds of elephant, many herds of elephant lying down, flat. So it's possible that in the middle of the night they do. Wow, that was a temper tantrum. It's possible they lie down more than we know. You find tracks often of herds lying down. It's very difficult for the big males and females to physically lie down on their side because of the weight and the pressure they put on their body. Youngsters find it a lot easier to lie down, and you often find them lying down while the adults are standing. But adults will lie down against banks or slopes, termite mounds, anything that gives them a little bit of sort of leverage so that the pressure's more down on their legs than on their rib cage. But we found many a herd of elephant with the thermal drone lying down. I was quite surprised at how many. But they won't lie down for long. I've had, in a camp I used to work at, the Northern Kruger, had a bull elephant that fell asleep next to my tent, lying down, and he was snoring all night long. It was quite a difficult sleep for me, because he was a very, very loud roommate. His tent walls are very thin, and he definitely slept for more than a couple of hours, that was for sure. I suppose when you've got a nose like an elephant, the potential for snoring is quite high. Isn't that a pretty picture? It's obviously Mum. He's learning from Mum exactly how it's done.
Elephants any day, and elephants will have wonderful stories to talk about. Now, we got a number of stocks here in the Masai Mara, maybe about 8 different species of stocks. And of all the stocks, this is my favorite. Talking of big mammals, the elephant that Steve got are my favorite mammals. But talking of stocks, this one is my favorite for so very many reasons. It's the most colorful all the stocks that we got in the Masai Mara. We do not see them as frequent as the other stocks. Quite tall, and I'm trying to compare her size or her height to the marabou stocks, but I think she could be slightly bit taller. And in general, you see them solitary. Unless they are mating, you'll always see these stocks on their own, and this is the sando-billed stock. Sando-billed stock. And look at the black, white, orange, is the color maroon. I mean, like 4 or 5 different colors. Remember, we came into you live from the Masai Mara Game Reserve. And should you have any questions or comments, don't be shy, send them through. As usual, you can tweet #CGTNWorld or #WildEarth. Now, some of these stocks is very difficult to tell males from females, but if you get a chance to get close to one, we look below their necks or in the eyes, and males will have like brown, dark eyes, and females will have yellow eyes. And like most stocks, feeding near water. Karen, good question, and you're asking, can this stock fly? Absolutely, 100%. I mean, I passed here earlier, and she was not here, Karen, but I can tell you 100%. They fly, but they do not fly very fast. You look at them in the air, Karen, their speed is not as like other birds like herons. To me, stocks are a bit slower in flight than herons, but yes, they do fly. What they do, they take quite a takeoff position or like a takeoff path before they're airborne, unlike other birds like eagles, which may take off like from where they are. So this one may have to build some kind of throttle or some kind of speed before she is off the ground. Very long beak. I'm sure she's looking for something to eat in that part of water. To catch something, or you having a drink? Beautiful. Very quickly she put, yeah, it's a drink now. How wonderful to see this stock drinking. Don't remember the last time I saw a sando-billed stock drinking. Of course, there is time to eat and time to drink. And always they'll keep looking. I mean, I do not think she has any major predators unless you talk of huge eagles like the female martial eagles. But either way, here, nobody likes to take any chances. Now maybe it's time to feed. Nice adjustment of the wings there. Very long legs they got. She reminds me of the flamingos. And very slow walk like the herons. And sometimes, as I believe she's walking in the water where she is, they'll use their feet trying to sense of any food, any invertebrates, any prey in the water there. And the feelers on the feet will pick something. You'll see maybe her putting her beak in the mud there and picking something. Hyla, I do not think they may swim. Most birds will swim in the water. I mean, unlike the ducks, I haven't seen any stock swimming in the water. We'll always see them water walking through with their long legs, and I'm sure they may have some kind of buoyancy, but I haven't seen any stock, out in the bush swimming in the water. So I do not know for a fact if this sando-billed stock would swim in the water. I have no idea. I would say possibly not. But again, you never know. If need be, what I've seen them do is to get in the water, cooling off, rubbing their feathers or their wings in the water, just, making themselves wet, and then out they go. Swimming, not really like the ducks and some other birds that we see swimming in the water. Crossing the road, quite majestic. Impala, are they meeting? The Impala going one way and the Sanderbill stock going the other way. Stefan, these stocks, I do not think they have a particular mating season or breeding time. They would mate like any other birds. But we have seen other stocks like the yellow-billed stocks, they have a particular season when they go mating. And these ones, unlike the other stocks, as I said earlier, we very rarely catch them. We very rarely see them. And the day you see one of these, all right, I think it was Karen who was asking me whether they fly, and you can see her taking off. I guess you saw her head and beak was tucked out, and it was very good to see her fly after such a good show. Now we're going to move on and find out what else we may have, and you never know what we have ahead of us.
Welcome back to the Mara, and I'm already at another section further down at the river. This is the river crossing spot, and we have one monster crocodile looking like he's road blocking the path to the crossing. That is the rocky part where they crossed a few days ago, and across the other side Butterfly, thank you for your question. It is a male. Yeah, males tend to have a short, very stumpy snout, and they darken with age, and he's super big. So it is a male. Yeah, like I was saying, this is a crossing they use, but that guy is blocking that section, so I doubt if they're going to cross, because there are very few. Normally, if there are too many, then they might cross, but that guy is intimidating enough for just a few. This is the Mara River. I'm sure you have been told, but just to remind you, this is the crossing where they cross. The river is high, and so it's quite deep, and the current is very strong. There's not many wildebeest or topi or zebra, just a handful. And if they do cross, I will be very, very happy. Looks like they are getting restless, which is always very good for us. It is a sign that they want to come across this side. Remember that the crossing is not necessary. They can stay on the other side, but they have to walk a very long way to get back to the Serengeti. So it is shorter if they cross the river, and sometimes once they've been here for like a month or 2 weeks, an urge to cross because there is fresher grass, maybe there has been rain on the other side comes, and so they cross back to the other side. It's a constant crisscrossing during the migration time. The skies are blue today, and looks like it's going to be one hot day. Remember, the temperatures here don't exceed about 30 degrees Celsius. And Sarah, thank you for your technical question. You ask how they keep warm from cold when there is no sun. Well, I don't know how I can answer you that, because I don't think they occur where there is no sun. I don't think there's anywhere where we have the night crocodile in Africa where the sun never shines. And if there isn't, or if it's a very cold day, they will get out And whatever temperature, there has to be a difference between being in the water and outside. They will adjust to that to help them, help do what they want to do, either it's swimming or fishing. But it's a rather technical question because Africa, we have the sun, and especially where these creatures, these cold-blooded creatures occur, we have the sun. They occur, north of equator, south of the equator, all the way down. So we always got the sun. Yes, I was talking about us being around the equator. So the temperatures here don't change much. They never go, out to freezing levels, and they never exceed almost like 30 degrees Celsius. So we are very, very lucky to be very close to the equator. In the Mara here, we're only 1 degree, about 15 minutes south of the equator. As the crow flies, it's around 100 kilometers to touch the equator. So we're very, very close. And here, days and nights are almost the same, 12 hours. The difference is only about 15 minutes. At different times of the year, it's only about 15 to 20 minutes different in time. Okay, it's for me, it's just about to sticking here, hoping we get to see more animals come down.
Here we have some zebra enjoying some of the more open parts of Djuma. You can see there's quite a lot of grass and scattered guari bushes. They've been lifting their heads up every now and then, and I can hear some rattling testiculars, as well as a squirrel. And I'm actually wondering if there's something close by. Those two together, I found it's generally a predatory bird. But who knows, it could be a predator too, of the land-dwelling type. You can hear the wind. Well, I'm glad you can hear the wind, because it is very, very windy and quite cool. So Isaac was chatting to you about how crocodiles stay warm, especially when there's no sun, and given that they're ectotherms, they need heat for all sorts of things, even digestion. Now looking at the zebra, oh, here comes the rain. The zebra and their beautiful stripes. One of the theories as to the function of these stripes, besides the marvelous camouflage that it can offer, is that it helps in temperature regulation, in that the black stripes absorb sunlight and heat, while the white stripes are reflecting that. So it allows them to maintain kind of a balance. But that's just one of several theories as to why zebras have black and white stripes. All the alarm calls are gone quiet now. Okay, I'll stop paying attention to them then. That's just one theory. And what's most likely is that it's a combination of several things. For one, it really does offer them good camouflage, especially when they're all in a group. It's difficult to kind of pinpoint an outline of one individual. And as a predator, you need to seek out your target amongst a herd. And so that benefits them in that way. Secondly, we do know that dark colors, especially black, absorbs a lot more heat than white. So obviously there will be a temperature differentiation between those two colors. But whether it is enough to thermoregulate the entire animal, we're not sure. Another theory is that the color difference actually prevents pests from finding a good spot to land in or to land on, because they're also getting a little bit dazzled by the variation. And it's actually been found that when zebras and horses were in Africa together, once the horses had been brought down during the Victorian era, I think, people actually started to try to domesticate zebras because they found that zebras had less infestations of any types of pests, and especially tsetse flies and biting flies. So that supports the theory that this striped pattern may actually assist in warding off any type of pests. Either way, whatever it is, it worked well for them. And that's why they've persisted with this coat. Really marvelous one at that. Corn husker. You'd like to know if zebras die of old age or all of them just become meals at the end. I'm sure there are some that die of old age, but let us talk about what old age is firstly, because humans don't even die of old age. Humans age, and then their ability to combat diseases, etc., is absolutely limited, and then they die from whatever affliction they get. So dying of old age is not really a thing. Something has to give up. Your lungs have to give up, or your heart has to give up, or something like that, and that's a result of your cells and your body aging. But you're not dying of old age. Hope you understand what I mean. So out in the wild, it's the same thing. Animals are not dying of old age. Animals may get an injury, or maybe their bones become brittle, and then they sustain an injury, and then they can't eat as well, and then they die. You may consider that old age. Whether they all end up as a meal, many of them do, and many zebras also end up the victim of fights, because those fights can be brutal, absolutely brutal. Stallions, you'll have to see it. I've seen it once, a full-on fight between two stallions, and the one stallion had actually pulled the skin of the belly off the other stallion, and it was just a flap that was hanging down onto the ground, and it was blood, and you can imagine it was quite horrific, and many stallions will die that way. But dying of old age is something that's quite unique to humans, because we're able to sustain ourselves even when something would normally kill us if we didn't have medical help. And that has prolonged our longevity quite substantially. All cells within our body have a certain limit after they replicate, or how many times they can replicate. It's called the Hayflick limit. For humans, it's about 50, and as you get older, that limit decreases and decreases. So basically, your cells are going to die faster, and we call that senescence. All animals have senescence. All animal cells have a certain Hayflick limit. They're just different depending on which animal you're talking about. Things like tortoises, Galapagos tortoise that can live over 120 years, they have a very high Hayflick limit, and they have what we call negligible senescence.
So we've got something very interesting that we don't see all that often. It's an elephant that's sleeping on its side. It's lying down and having a good little rest. It's a cold day, so it's just trying to stay warm out the wind and lying down flat on the ground. There's quite a few sticks and things in the way, but it's very unusual to see. An elephant's such a big animal, so heavy that it's not easy for it to stand up when it's been lying down like this. But they do have to sleep sometimes, and this is a way for it to have a good, deep, long sleep. Or it might try and get up, or not. There's plenty of elephants around. You'll only really see elephants do this when there are lots of others around. They very rarely do this unless there are lots of other elephants around. So you see there's another elephant right here, a young bull, who actually came closer to this one to investigate for a moment, and then wandered off. And you can hear probably cracking branches of other elephants all around. Oh, this elephant's got a bit of dust in his eye. Luleveld is so special to see elephants sleep. I wonder how long that one will lie down. I don't think it's a particularly long time that they lie down. Often, maybe about an hour they might be lying down, and they'll take turns. One will lie down, then it'll stand up and another one will lie down. So we'll see. I don't know how long this one's been here, but the rest of the elephants are not moving fast. They're all scattered around these sickle bush clearings, feeding slowly. So maybe once they get, a little bit of ways, this elephant will stand up and follow them on. Oh, this young bull is coming to say hi. Hello, old chap. Yes, we are here. Don't worry, we're not going to cause you any trouble. Oh, he's flicking his foot at us to say, hey, shoo, get out of here. My friend's trying to sleep. We know. That's why we're being very, very quiet. And we don't want to get any closer. We don't want to wake your friend. Yes, we also... Yeah, I know. Oh, what are you doing? What is it doing? It's kneeling down on one back leg. What on earth are you doing? That was the most weirdest thing I've ever seen. Did you just bow at us? Was that like a... It's taking a bow. It almost looked like he was giving us a little respectful, how's it going? You are a cool elephant. He's even got a piercing in his right ear there. He's one of the cool ones. I don't know if you can see that white marking by its eye there. It's a little secretion that elephants get. It's basically like elephant tears. When they get a lot of dust, it's very dusty and windy at the moment. So when the dust collects there, they blink their eyes a lot, and the dust collects there on their eyes. Oh, and it's feeling its tusk there. Yes, you've got a very nice tusk. Don't play with it too much, it'll fall off. Look how dark its tusks are. It's been using it a lot, probably scraping bark and digging in the mud. This is the funniest elephant. He's going to step on his own trunk now. That doesn't look very comfortable. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? Are you bored? Are you bored because the other elephants are not playing with you? What's the story? He's crossed his back legs now as well. That's so odd. Look at this guy. He's just chilled. He's like, no, I'm not even paying attention. I'm just relaxing over here. I'm not doing anything. You are a very entertaining young elephant. So this elephant's not very big. Oh, there's a female coming with a baby. This is so nice. Yeah. So this is not a very big elephant. He's probably his early 20s maybe. And there's another elephant coming up to investigate us. Hello. Yes, you're a nice young chap as well. Also probably in his mid-20s. That's close enough. Hey there, old chap. Don't be silly now. Oh, he's standing tall. See, he's investigating. You can see me moving. I don't have a door on my vehicle, so he can see me moving. And he's wondering, what is this small, tiny creature that's just moving around on the side of this car? So the whole herd is slowly moving towards us, and these are bulls. Very, very curious. Bull elephants are always so curious, especially at this age. They are not yet as big as they can be, still making their way in the world, finding out what is what works, what doesn't work for them, just generally learning how to be elephants. There was a story, I think it was in the Pilanesberg National Park, about young elephants that were translocated young males, and then they never actually learnt good manners from the larger elephants because there weren't any, and they ended up causing all sorts of trouble. So these young elephants, if there are no big males around to put them in their place, they probably would turn into troublesome young guys. But these ones are gonna have a bit of a fight here. We're a bit close to them if they do start fighting. If they get aggressive with each other, we'll try and move the vehicle away. And don't want to be too close to them when they do that. Look at this. Oh, that's cute. It's almost like a hug. Oh, hey there, old chap. We're a little bit surrounded here. We are probably going to have to move in a moment, which might cause the elephants to raise their heads and trumpet a little bit. But we've got that other young bull's coming up quite close behind us, and then these ones are in front looking like they want to have a little bit of a wrestling match. So if we do have to start the car, apologies everyone. But we don't want to be too close to them if they do start being quite boisterous with each other. Oh no, he's moving off. That's good. Wow, we're so fortunate to be able to be so close to elephants like this with doing their thing. Remember, they spend a lot of time at Ndlovu Dam, which is very close to our camp. And so they definitely can smell and understand vehicles and humans. And as long as we, don't make lots of noise and cause all sorts of trouble, they largely ignore us, to be honest. They know exactly what we are. These two are going to have their little fight. Look how they raise their heads up to try and be bigger and taller. Oh, he's going to reverse into us. Okay. Listen, old chap, you're getting a bit close to us now. I'm just going to move our vehicle a little bit away from these elephants because they are going to try and probably have a bit of a tussle. And I don't want to be too close to them if they do. So apologies, everyone. I don't want to scare the elephants, but we also don't want to put ourselves in a situation where they feel a little bit threatened by us being too close when they're trying to have a little bit of fun. And there's lots of young ones as well. And when there's young elephants around, can often cause the females, when the males get a little bit boisterous, cause the females to want to defend the youngsters. So I'm just going to get a little bit away and then I'll turn us around and have a look at them from a bit of a distance. All right.
Yeah, welcome back to the river, and we have a few topis approaching the water and looking with, looking at the water curiously, making sure they can see everything, but they can only see as far as the top of the water. Their eyes cannot penetrate in, and so that's where their worry is, what is under. Usually topis don't waste much time, and these ones have wasted a lot of time. I'm sure they could be seeing that big guy to the left there, the big crocodile, and that's the reason why, they're taking their time. Also, they know that it is dangerous to cross. Of course, even if there is nothing, they have to be very careful. Just like sometimes, crossing a road, you have to look right, left, and also you have to look at the right spot to cross. Okay, here comes zebra. Are they gonna come down? Usually we have more than one, very much like what we see here. We have more than, usually we have more than, let's say 100 or 200. It's much more promising. With a few like this, looks like they still have to gather courage to go across. See, they've walked back. Now from there they might stay for another 1 hour before deciding to come down. This is typical. This is what happens here at the crossing. Decisions to cross. I'm hoping as the the day carries on, the day warms up, we will get the 100 herds or more that are out in the plains that will want to come and have a drink or even to cross. There is a good number of thousands across the other side. I'm hoping that they're going to come this way later on to cross. So I'm going to sit here and hopefully I can share a crossing with you today.
Yeah, I think the zebras and topis have retrained our patience. And Isaac, just like me, we are learning something from them, always to be patient. And you do not push these animals. You only have to wait, and they do what they want to do. Now, we have come to an area that has lots of water, and what we found out, there are so many different species of animals here. We got the zebras that you can see, and some of the largest antelopes we got in Africa, the elands, and they're all having a drink. Crossing the road, and we all know that water is life, is what brings some of these animals together. So the common zebra or the plains zebra will always go in huge herds, but I'm trying to imagine there could be about 2 or 3, 4 different families in this particular herd, where you normally have one stallion with a few wives and some youngsters with them. Elands, huge antelopes, and just like some of the animals, like the bird I was saying earlier, the sandal-billed stork that we rarely see, they tend to be snaky and a bit skittish. But this particular herd I have here, have about 10 of them. They look very calm, very relaxed. Should be a big male walking there, and some ox pickers are enjoying a ride on him with the normal getting parasites out of the bodies. They look big and huge, but you'll be surprised how high these elands can jump. It's been claimed they can jump from a standing point up to 4 meters high. And I've always wondered what reasons could make them jump that high, apart from maybe seeing something like a snake.
We're still with that herd. We've got a bit of space and we've given them a bit of their own place to play. But of course, as always, when Susan is around, she doesn't like to give space. She likes to come and spend time right next to us. So there we got Susan the elephant. Of course, we backed right off. You can see where the rest of the herd is in the back, and she's here having a good feed on this tree. The bark, at this time of year, bark is very important. Cameron, that's a good question. The matriarch's generally the oldest female because it's the most experienced female, the one that knows where all the food is, it knows where the water is, makes decisions about where to go. So generally speaking, it will be the oldest. But often what happens is you'll get maybe two females that are having a conflict, and sometimes they'll end up splitting off their family. So it might not be as old as the other, but it'll become the matriarch of the new group. So that's often the case. And there's a very young elephant, as you can see. Tiny little elephant busy. It actually chased some warthogs off a moment ago, and now it's feeling very full of itself. It's going to go and start eating some branches and twigs, because that's what winners do. Okay? Playing with its little trunk, swinging it around. What an awesome day. From a cold, windy morning, we thought, nothing's happening, nothing's alive out here, to such excitement. These elephants are now ending it all off with us, with their lovely displays of boisterousness from the males, and of course Susan coming to say hi, and their babies. Now, Susan's a legend around these parts. She does like to play, as you can see. Oh, yes, you're very strong, Susan. Very, very strong young elephant. She's busy pulling some branches here, really trying to get that bark off. Look how she's manipulating her tusk and her trunk together to strip off that bark and eat all the cambium, the sugary substance just below the surface. It's really spectacular to see. There's a couple of older elephants now coming here. Oh, I hope they don't give Susan any trouble. Last time they caused some trouble, and we're a bit blocked here behind us, so hopefully Susan stands her ground and chases them off. She didn't like it last time the young bulls were causing her trouble. Oh, look at the bulls now playing behind. What an awesome, awesome thing to be doing. It's amazing spending time with these beasts. Well, we've had such an awesome morning. Please don't forget to join us this afternoon at 3 o'clock for more action on this live safari. And I've hoped that you've really enjoyed us this morning. And we will make sure to follow up on these elephants this afternoon and see what they've been up to. Thanks, everybody. See you later.
This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Jumbo Jumbo and hello everybody. Welcome to the Masai Mara Game Reserve of Kenya, and we got some zebras and topis and other animals that want to cross the Mara River. My name is David. Welcome aboard to your very own safari, live from the African bush.